Hello. Hello. I don't know why I did that big showy hand thing. Hello, and welcome to episode 107 of the City Brew Tours podcast, where we explore the best craft beer scenes across the United States. I'm your host, Brian. Happy to be back for another episode featuring our spotlight city this month, Cincinnati, the Queen City itself, the gem of Ohio. And I'm happy again to be joined by my wonderful co-host this month, my good friend Braxton. Braxton, how's it going?
Hey, great. See the two beers we're drinking today, getting really excited for that. And as always, great to see you. And as always, a showman. That's why you did the hand thing. You're a showman. You knew it was time to turn it on.
How's your week going, man? How was your weekend?
Oh, so far, so good. I was actually in Connecticut for a little vacation at the beach. So that was nice. Yeah. Ooh. Not as many breweries as I thought that would be in that area. But we went into New York, which is a good little time. So we went to a couple places there.
Nice. Well, since you're not going to ask me, my week has been going great.
I figured you were just going to tell me, like, hey, had a lot of people come by for the Taylor Swift event.
Yes, lots of Swift buzz in the city over the weekend. We are extremely busy at the brewery. Really great weekend at 11th Hour Brewing Company. People have asked which brewery I work at. I've worked at a couple different ones, but now currently at 11th Hour, we'll be there for the foreseeable future. Very, very happy about that. And we had great weekend. I did not go to Taylor Swift. I had a wonderful Father's Day, and the week so far has been good. Great, I would even say.
Oh, okay.
Great, grand, wonderful.
Awesome, okay. Awesome.
Well, tonight we are featuring what is the biggest Cincinnati brewery, Rhinegeist, the ghost of the Rhine, the spirit of the Rhine, a brewery that actually just this past weekend, while we were celebrating Swiftsburg down here in Pittsburgh, over in Cincinnati, Rhinegeist was celebrating their 10-year anniversary. Last I checked the stats, they're doing over 100,000 barrels in production. They wear big boy pants, big girl pants over at Rhinegeist, doing big things, brewing lots of beer and doing it exceptionally well, winning countless medals at both the GABF and the World Beer Cup, and really making a name for themselves with beers like the Truth IPA and their beer cider hybrid combo, Bubbles, and the whole line that spun off of that. But at their core, they make extremely drinkable, approachable beers for the working class city that is Cincinnati. And that's why Rhinegeist is so well representative of the people that make up that company and the people that make up the community of Cincinnati. Is they make beers with character, beers that you can enjoy, but beers that still, have a world-class standing amongst all the beers out there in America. And super excited to be drinking beers from them, and super excited to be talking to our guest tonight, which we'll get to in a little bit. He's an old friend that you may have seen on our Cincinnati episode of Next Exit from Untapped last year. But that is far too much talking for me to be doing without having an open beer from our featured brewery in front of me. So, Braxton, what do you say we open this Petrichor?
I was hoping you would say the name, because in my head I was like going over it a couple of times. I was like, how do I Pete something record? I don't know. So I'm glad you said it, and I hope that's how you actually say it. I know somebody may say something to us. If I ever go to Cincinnati, I'm going to ask the pronunciation.
Yeah, we should I probably should have checked with Rhinegeist on that, but I'm pretty sure I would say Petrichor, Petrichor. Folks at home, write in when you leave a review on iTunes. Phonetically spell out Petrichor for us and tell me if I'm doing it right or wrong. So yeah, we're featuring the Petrichor tonight. We're also featuring their Beer for Humans, which is an easy hop ale. This Petrichor is an American wheat ale brewed with Pilsner, white wheat, Vienna, and flaked oats. So I'm expecting really nice malt character for it. It also has Cascade and Huell melon hops. So I'm expecting that there's going to be a really nice fruity flavor in there, some grapefruit character, some melon character in there. Cheers, Braxton.
Cheers. As you're saying that, I'm like smelling it and
You're
getting into
already,
it.
yeah.
I'm like, oh wait, I do get that now. I'm like, wait.
Mm. Oh yeah,
That's really
that
good.
is perfectly drinkable for summer. Yeah, you definitely get that that fruity hop character is playing very well with some of the fermentation character that's going on in here. I feel like I'm getting like fermentation esters and like floral kind of yeasty flavors from it, and it's playing really well with those Huell melon hops. Braxton's thoughts on our beer?
Really good. I appreciate the fact that I think I could. This is what makes these kind of beers dangerous, because I could drink them all day, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, it's only 5.5%. It's mild, and then those add up. So this is definitely a great beer, but a dangerous beer because of the fact that it can creep up on you. I feel like I could drink this. It's not killing my tongue. Nice and refreshing, and I want to come back to it. Like, it's like, okay, it's settled, it's down. Let me come back to it again. Like, no, I got it, but no, let's try it one more time.
That's a really good way to put it. You want to come back to this beer. It is inviting. As I pick it up and have another.
See?
Delicious taste. Yeah, that is a wonderful beer. For those that don't know, Rhinegeist, and for the listeners at home, you have to look this up. Go on your Google machine and look up Rhinegeist cans. They have such an excellent example of branding. If you took away all of the words off of any Rhinegeist can or bottle label, you would immediately know it's Rhinegeist, because they have such a recognizable logo. They have a recognizable font. They have a real consistent layout to the cans and the branding on there. And it's just a really good example of a brewery that put efforts into branding and marketing that paid off in reflecting a cohesive brand overall, rather than just doing a bunch of flashy stuff and kind of stunty gotcha marketing. It's really thoughtful and really shows off what is important to them. If you didn't know, the logo's a little ghost, so that's the Geist, and it's over a river, which is the Rhine. That kind of body there's the Rhine. I think that's what Chris from Rhinegeist told me when I met with him. That's probably not a good way to like follow up that statement. I think that's what he told me.
We were drinking at the time. I think that's what he said.
We were. That's thank you for helping me out with that. That's a great excuse. You start using that one too much though, and people start talking behind your back about an intervention.
Yep. I was just about to say that. Get intervention real quick. See cameras in. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Talk to you about your coffee.
I think now is an excellent time to get bailed out by, bring on our guest for the evening. Like I mentioned, he was a guest on our wonderful episode of Cincinnati Next Exit with Untapped last year. He is the executive director of the Cincinnati Brewing Heritage Trail. Please welcome Steve Hampton.
Fantastic. You guys? Well, I've already been listening to, so I know you're doing great. So I don't.
we're
you got to go right back into that. So yeah.
I mean, it's courtesy, It's
exactly.
It's the niceties. It's
we're very polite in Cincinnati, It's that German heritage,
So. We love it. We love it. So Steve, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started in this interview like we do with all of our interviews with our quick sip questions. These are fast questions. We want fast answers from you. It'll help us get to know you fast. Steve, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What's your favorite beer?
Oh, I'm a lager guy. Lately, I've been drinking some of Northern Rose. I'm bad at names because there's just so many beers, but basically they're Helles. It's a great beer. It's too many beers, too many breweries. Like, again, going back to your comment about like, I was drinking when I had that, so I think it was this. Yeah, but no, a lot of lagers, a lot more breweries are doing lagers these days, but definitely like Northern Rose is it's a neighbor, so it's very convenient.
Nice. Favorite place other than a brewery to grab a drink in Cincinnati?
Oh boy. Honestly, we've got a number of great parks that have beer licenses. So Washington Park, right in the heart of Over the Rhine, is a great place. You can sit there. It's a recently renovated urban park right in the middle of Over the Rhine. Music halls in the background. It's a fantastic place to play. The kids can go run in the fountain. You can sit there and drink a beer. Really, really good thing.
Awesome. Favorite season in Cincinnati?
Boy, I like them all. I'll say spring though, because spring is when we celebrate Bock Fest, and Bock Fest is quintessential Cincinnati in beer, and so I got to go with that.
Shout out to Bock Fest. What's your favorite place you've ever traveled?
Rolling with the beer, Germany. I had the opportunity to go there for about 2 months when I was in college, and got to spend a lot of time there. It was actually before I really knew a lot about beer. Actually, I turned 21 when I was in Germany, so a whole lot going on with there, but I loved it. And actually, I think I may have the opportunity to go back for Oktoberfest this year, so coming full circle, so yeah.
Ooh, nice.
Big.
And then finally, Steve, have you ever seen Bigfoot?
I have not.
Okay, I'm gonna keep trying.
Yeah.
But
We'll
both. Sorry, Braxton, go ahead.
I was going to say, we'll get somebody eventually. Eventually, they'll be like, actually, bow, here we go.
We've gotten a couple good stories from our friends in Michigan and our friends up in the Pacific Northwest, and we've gotten a couple good ones. But I'm gonna, yeah.
Check with me in a week. I'm going camping this weekend up in Mohican, up in kind of north central Ohio, and apparently, unbeknownst to me, they've had lots of Bigfoot sightings over the years. So in a week, I'll come back and be like, I saw him. See on the news, local man sees Bigfoot. Maybe that'll be me. So
Okay, awesome. So, Stephen, many cities in America have rich brewing history dating back to the 1900s. However, very few have one that has a non-profit organization working on the history. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Cincinnati Heritage Trail?
Yeah. So the Brewing Heritage Trail is, we don't even need Cincinnati because we are the Brewing Heritage Trail. Cincinnati is just where we happen to be at. What's great about the Brewing Heritage Trail and what we're doing with it, it celebrates beer in all its forms. And, with the, Cincinnati specifically is really the story of beer in America. And that's what's great about it. We're not just telling the story of beer. We're telling the story of Cincinnati, the story of America through that lens of beer, because beer is tied historically to culture, to the economy, to politics, to really so many different aspects of the country, and specifically Cincinnati with that huge German influence. Literally, the story of beer is a story of the streets that we're walking around and that we live in now. And so it's a really unique way to look at beer. When we started this, 10, 12 years ago, actually even tours we started in 2000 or 2006. There was craft beer revolution. And so the only brewery we had was at the time, the Sam Adams and the old Shaneling Brewery, and, luckily now we have active breweries in the old breweries like Rhinegeist, like Christian Moorline, Tass, and a number of others. And so it's kind of come full circle, but again, it's so much more than just beer. Beer is that hook, gets people who normally maybe wouldn't say, hey, I want to take a history tour, but beer history, sign them up. And then you can sneak a little knowledge in there, while they're enjoying their beer and learning about the fun stuff. So.
Yeah, funny enough, Braxton and I are both guides for the City Brew Tours Company here in Pittsburgh, and we've done a number of tours in the area, and it's always cool to find that connection between the people that are really interested in the history of the breweries, and specifically here in Pittsburgh, talking about the old places like Penn Brewing Company, and those people that are just there because like they heard it's about beer. We give beer on the tour. Which I think you give beers on.
But most of our tours do include a beer of some sort. Yeah. So it's a good hook. And there's always the people you can tell that their friends booked the tour and they're like, I thought I was just going to be inside the brewery the whole time. And we're down 30 feet underground in an old dusty whatever brewery. And they're like, this is cool, but not what I expected. So that we definitely get that a lot on our tours. So it's a good way. It's always nice to be surprised from time to time. But I mean, the great thing about, and that's really one of the cool hooks that we have to be able to tell that story, is this rich number of the physical remains of a lot of these breweries. Besides being, one of the biggest brewing centers, pre-prohibition, all that stuff, we have one of the largest collections of pre-prohibition brewery architecture in the country, and it's all mostly in the middle of a huge historic district that's still remaining. And while there are big, massive complexes in St. Louis and Milwaukee, nobody has dozens of historic brewery structures, from brew houses to bottle houses to stables to offices to malt houses and cellars, all that stuff in the middle of a living, breathing neighborhood. And that's what really helps set us apart and allows us to tell a story in a really unique way. That physical, the physicalness of that in the middle of the city allows us to tell these stories in, again, a way you're not just staring at a parking lot and going, imagine what used to be here. The fact that you can walk into these buildings and underground and really viscerally feel that, even though hasn't been anything in there in 100 years, it's still really powerful. And again, it's a really great way to be able to tell that story.
Yeah, you talk about being right in the heart of it. Your storefront / museum / start of the most starting point of most tours is right in the heart of Over the Rhine. You're right. There's a brewery right next door to you. I think you're right around the corner from Rhinegeist and Sam Adams. So you're right in that neighborhood that means so much to Cincinnati's brewing history. And like Braxton mentioned, there's a lot of cities that have this brewing history going back, to the 1900s, 1800s, but there is something special about Cincinnati. And what do you think is it that makes Cincinnati's history unique?
I think, again, some of it is because it was so directed. Part of its timing. Cincinnati was really, if you go there and look around in the old parts, like in Over the Rhine, it was really an East Coast city. At one point, we were, for quite a number of decades, we were one of the top 10 biggest cities in the country. We were at the forefront of Western expansion in those very early days. And so we straddle a lot of different worlds. We're Midwest, but if you look at our architecture, you could swear maybe you're in Boston or different places. Yeah. We're across the river from Kentucky, so we have the Southern influence. So we have a lot of really kind of different influences on us. And, the fact that we're a river town, that's how things were shipped out and got to places before the railroads and before the interstates. And so our physicality was built in a much earlier time. And I think that really reflects, we're a city of hills. We're not just a big flat plain stuff. So we're very much these neighborhoods and these pockets. And you never really get a full sense of Cincinnati. You can't look at one spot in Cincinnati and see the whole city. It's you're constantly discovering different places, different neighborhoods, different breweries. And I think that's kind of reflected that, a lot of neighborhoods have their own little, brew pubs that aren't producing beer for outside of them. Maybe they'll can something from now and then. We obviously have our Rhinegeist and our Sam Adams and Mad Trees and some of our big breweries, but it's really a city of neighborhoods and different unique areas. And there's not just one flavor of Cincinnati. You have lots of different flavors of Cincinnati. And so you get this real melting pot of heritage, but of influences and physicality, all those different things. And you have all these little just micro areas, if you want to throw a fancy word, the terrier, that you've got your place about it. And it is really unique. You go to these different places and they're all just slightly different, their own feel. And I think that really reflects in the brewing, both current day and just, even if nobody has a real connection to the brewing heritage, knowing that that's there, and the fact that, again, you go to Rhinegeist, everybody's been to Rhinegeist. It's in a huge bottling plant from the 1800s, from at one point the 5th largest brewery in the country. Like you can't ignore brewing history in Cincinnati, even if you try. So all those things, it's just always there, and it really influences, I think, in a lot of different ways.
Awesome. You mentioned Rhinegeist, and when I think of Rhinegeist, I think of this large brewing monstrosity. But how does Rhinegeist compare to? Now, I may get the name wrong, so you have to correct me on this. More lean,
More line.
more line. Okay, more line brewery, or the other historic over the Rhine breweries.
So, I mean, the whole Moorline story is just, it's again, it's a microcosm of the story of American beer. So Christian Moorline was started in 1853 by a German immigrant named Christian Moorline. He had traveled over here. He had trained a little bit as a brewer, but he was a blacksmith, and he worked his way digging ditches and shotting horses and making his way to Cincinnati, where he set up a blacksmith shop. And in a few years, he partnered with another brewer. Turns out he brewed really good beer, partnered with another brewer, then eventually went out on his own. And he grew that brewery in pre-Prohibition times to the 5th biggest brewery in the country, was Christian Moorline, in the heart of Over the Rhine in Cincinnati. Now, he passed away before Prohibition. Prohibition shut everything down. His family decided they were toying with the idea of opening a new modern brewery after Prohibition, but they never did. And Christian Moorline went away. In 1981, Hudepohl, which was one of the few remaining, one of the last 3 remaining breweries in Cincinnati that actually predated pre-Prohibition times, they brought back Christian Moorline as a brand, as one of the first craft beers in America. So you had Anchor Steam out on the West Coast, and you actually had Christian Moorline, was really the second craft beer. At the time, they didn't have the word craft beer. It was the better beer movement. And on a little fun side note, nobody had ever done this before. They were the first American beer. They sent their beer back to Germany, to Bavaria, and had it certified Rhinegeist pure, which no American beer had ever decided to do that. So it's kind of a little fun side note. But
I didn't know
name
that
was brought back as the forefront at the really early days in 1981 of the craft beer movement. What was the craft beer movement at the time. And then Hudepohl got sold. They merged with Shanling. They sold the physical brewery to Sam Adams, and they were being owned by a company in Cleveland and just brewed wherever. And it was brought back to Cincinnati eventually, and is brewed back in Cincinnati again. So again, that whole story of just Moorline is the story of American beer. But yeah, I mean, back to the kind of comparison with the Rhinegeist. Rhinegeist hit, kind of, a little bit of lightning in a bottle. They hit the perfect time. They had the perfect, they really came with very hop heavy beers and, kind of that West Coast style right when that was popping. They landed an amazing facility that right when tap rooms were legalized in Ohio, that they could pack a tap room and sell the beer on their own and make a lot more money selling beer on their own. They're a great team over there, and it was a lot of, some of it's timing, a lot of really hard work and great work on their end. And so, there's only a few of those that were able to do that. Mad Tree, not quite to their level. They are kind of coming out at the same time. Moorline's kind of struggled the last few years. They're on their 3rd owner in the last 2 years, but the new owners doing some really great things. They're actually renovating 2 old historic brewery buildings to bring that brewing back in and have a huge taproom restaurant. So the new owners were really excited about. They're going to be kind of bringing it kind of back at its preeminence. So, it's you can have the best business plan in the world, and sometimes it's happenstance, but they definitely had a great business plan and a great team, and kind of hit that, right at the right time. And they invested in distributing right away. I mean, there's so much on the technical side we can talk about with how Rhinegeist put their team together and their business plan. But yeah, they're kind of like, they're going to be the casebook study, in the business book of how do you grow a brewery. But it's also, it's also a harder time to do that now. There's a lot of breweries out there now, a lot more than there were 10 years ago. So it's again, that timing plays a lot into it.
Well, it's much like you talked about the story with Christian Moorline. Came to Cincinnati originally, opened up as a blacksmith. Rhinegeist, one of the founders, came to Cincinnati, fell in love with the town, thought it was a good place to open a coffee shop, and originally open coffee, and then met the other, or had met the other owner previous.
Was the coffee guy, yeah,
and it was like, hey, I think this is the right place for beer, and
even as a side note, timing wise, that the facility that they're in, Moorline almost moved into that building before Rhinegeist did. So who knows what would have happened if that, maybe that would have been flipped, so just didn't work out for them at the time, and Rhinegeist snapped it up, so.
It is one of the most impressive and like awe-inspiring breweries I've ever been inside, because you go into this kind of old school industrial looking building, you go up 2 flights of stairs to get to the tattoo, if not 3 flights of stairs to get to the tap room itself, and opens up into this gigantic, huge room with probably 30-foot tall ceilings, giant fermenters, backing this huge open beer garden style area with big tables. I think 30 beers on tap or something like that. It is quite impressive. And to see some very good video footage, I'm gonna mention this again. Check out our next exit episode from Untapped. The folks from the camera folks that shot that made that space look absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And anyways, my glass is empty. Braxton, you want to open our second beer for tonight? The aptly named Beer for Humans.
Absolutely. So I kind of beat you to it. I was getting thirsty too, so I was ready to go.
You already fired it off. I didn't even hear it. You opened it away from Mike, off mic.
Just a little, I was taking care of it because I was so engaged when Steve was starting to really talk about just like the more line. I was like, oh more man, line. Like. And it's just crazy how things work out. So I can only imagine just getting this from you now, how the tours work. And, even when people were like, I didn't expect this, but hey, I learned a crap ton of stuff about beer. So when I have people that come into Cincinnati, I can say, hey, do you know about this? You know about this? So you kind of look like the it person, like, how do you know all this? I just know. Hopefully they mention you, but sometimes I think people may just say, hey, I just know this.
It's a good thing. We're, at our core, we're actually a nonprofit. We're actually a neighborhood development nonprofit, and we got into beer history as a really unique way for neighborhood redevelopment. So we're a little atypical in a lot of ways. So as long as they're coming out with a positive vibe, if they want to be the expert, we're all good for it. So.
Oh, it smells so good.
This beer is wonderful. Just to get back to like what. To the beer that we opened, and like what I think what we're supposed to talk about on this show, it's always supposed to be about the featured beers. I don't ever know what we're supposed to talk about. I guess I'm the one that's supposed to figure out what we're supposed to talk about. Please tell me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I can
listeners,
ramble on things,
Beer Club subscribers in the chat, please tell me. But yeah, this beer is exceptional. So Beer for Humans is what they call an easy hop ale, clocking in at 4.5% ABV and 7 IBUs. I can't believe this. And to achieve those 7 IBUs, they have used a blend of Centennial, Mosaic, Eldorado, Eureka, and Sultana hops. So they have very carefully selected blends of hops that complement each other in both oil content and aroma and IBU, or not IBUs, AAUs, alpha acids that are going to go into the beer and make for this extremely easy drinking, but unbelievably complex beer. I don't know if I've ever had a beer that's this complex. It's like 4.5%.
This is my first easy hop ale, so I'm just trying to savor it all in because at first I thought it's like,
I think they made that up, dude.
Yeah, they did a great job. I was like, is this just the sessions? But I mean, if you can make it work and trademark, hey, we were the first brewery to do easy hop ale. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
it's just so good. Like it's
there's no like, this is gonna sound like a wild comparison. There's none of like the ginger beer flavor, but the first thing that came to mind is a Moscow Mule for me. That mix of alcohol and lime and like a little bit of like spice character, to me immediately hit Moscow Mule in my brain. Maybe I've just been drinking too many Moscow Mules, but that's what I got.
I can see where you're going with this. This is just another really good beer that's dangerous because you can continue to just sip on this all day. And again, 4.5%. So it's just like, oh no, I can have 5 or 6 or 10 of these. Like, oh yeah, I'm fine. But
Here's my theory. I was going to throw this out there earlier when you were talking about the 5.5% beer. Something happens when you cross that 5% and things start to get a little bit more serious, where that 12 pack that you might drink throughout the day, like hanging out on the river or at camp or whatever, a day drinking thing, it catches up with you pretty quick. For some reason, once you get under there, 4.5, like those tend to add up a little bit slower. And I don't know what it is, but 4.5% range seems to be the money range for me. Maybe because I started on Guinness. That was like my first, like, oh, this is good beer. And that's like, I think that's like 4.2.
Yeah.
So anyways, we're getting way off the rails here.
Well, let's see if I can get us back on track. So, Steve, we talked a lot about some big breweries here in Cincinnati, but what are some of the smaller spots you like to frequent, or maybe tell people after a tour you would recommend to people in town?
Yeah. So again, I mean, you can make a day of just hitting breweries, and over the Rhine and downtown. But again, we've got, you lose track, and depending on where you define what Cincinnati is, 50, 60 breweries. But, some of what the really cool thing is, there's some just doing all kinds of different things. So you've got High Grain up in Silverton, which is just doing, they do all their beers really well, but they have some really just straight classic Pilsners and Helleses and that type of stuff. There are really, the other thing that I find great about a lot of these brew pubs too, they're all just doing amazing food in different times, but they have a really great restaurant. You've got Urban Artifact, which, if you like sours and tarts, I mean, they're just world class in what they're doing over in Northside there. That's amazing. Let's see who does some really unique stuff. Street Side does, they do a lot of the kind of the blanket, like the lactose type ones and some of the milkshake styles,
pastry stuff,
yeah, but they're always doing really creative things. Kind of one of the OGs in the craft beer scene, and Listerman, they always have something kind of unique on tap up there. And so, yeah, there's really something for everybody. I know we just across the river in Northern Kentucky, we had like a meadery open. So that's, if you're into that. So, lots of just great straight beer, but if you really want to explore some styles, there are definitely some rabbit holes to go down in Cincinnati. And those are some of the fun ones.
So, everyone at home, all the breweries that Steve mentioned are the breweries that we're featuring this month, and Steve didn't know that. I think I hope you all take that as a vote of credibility to us and our folks behind the scenes that are finding the breweries that we're featuring, because Steve didn't know that we are featuring this month Listerman, Street Side, Urban Artifact, and then the other two are the big ones, Mad Tree and Rhinegeist. So shout out to us for being super cool, especially with Cincinnati locals.
Nicely done.
So Steve, other than beer, obviously we're trying to promote Cincinnati as a beer scene and say, like, look, people need to go and check this out and visit these wonderful breweries and experience this culture and community that the beer scene plays a role in Cincinnati. So other than that beer scene, what is something that you wish Cincinnati was more well known for?
I mean, I touched on a lot of it. I think Cincinnati is truly just a hidden gem of a lot of things. I mean, it is, as I mentioned, it's Midwest, but it's Southern. It's East Coast and it's urban, but it's kind of got suburban stuff. And there's just all these little gems. I mean, again, history, you could just go all day long on history if you like that stuff. So, we talk about, like, one of our goals with the trail, we should be on the same, when you talk about cities like Savannah or Charleston or Boston, for places like you go to because of their history, Cincinnati should be right in that same breath. We have just a wealth of history of different unique things and that type of stuff. But again, just, we have a great culinary scene that's just doing amazing stuff. I think we had like 3 James Beard nominees that were just up for awards, like for the national awards, just a couple weeks ago. Again, we're there's not just one Cincinnati thing. So there's so many unique little aspects of Cincinnati. You know, you can just hang out downtown and over the Rhine and get a feel. You go out to some of the neighborhoods, you go to Northern Kentucky. There's just so many different unique aspects. The topography is great, you know, because we've got hills and a river. It's you never have the same view, you know, and it's just there's all these unique things kind of coming together and creates just a wealth of different experiences, really whatever you're looking for. You know, right now, sports wise, we're we're sitting pretty. This is a rare trifecta, quadfecta. I mean, the Reds are somehow in first place. The Bengals are Super Bowl contenders. FC Cincinnati of soccer is in first place. It's really a special time in Cincinnati. There's a real energy, and there already was. You know, we've had an amazing renovation of Over the Rhine, which is a 360-acre historic district, you know, just outside of downtown. And there's a real energy to Cincinnati, you know, both downtown and the core and in other neighborhoods. It's just a really fun time to be here. So that's a was a real specific answer. I kind of gave you a big wide, but again, there's this not one thing, I think, and that's the cool thing about Cincinnati.
It is the sum of its parts.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And that's what makes it special. Yeah, I as you've been talking about the things that are special to Cincinnati to you throughout this episode, I'm thinking of the time that I've spent there riding around and just kind of observing. I've been lucky enough to be driven around the city, I think both times that I went there. And it was nice to kind of take in and look at it. And it did remind me of those kind of old world East Coast cities that have that old architecture and that were these bustling river towns. Shout out to Ohio River buddies, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Ohio River buddies.
A lot of similarities in our cities. Yeah.
But there is this feel, culture, spirit around the pride that Cincinnati locals have for what is special to them about Cincinnati. And with different groups of people, you'll find different things that are special to them. And that's why I immediately said that's it's a sum of its parts. Is all of those things are what make Cincinnati special. It's not one thing. It's not just the beer scene. It's not just Skyline Chili, which funny enough, I think is the first time I've said that in the 3 episodes that we have featured Cincinnati. It is the sum of all these things that come. It's the working class history. It's the rich German history, the background of all these German immigrants moving to the over the Rhine neighborhood and basically making this brewing hub in the 1800s and 1900s before Prohibition in Cincinnati, and having the 5th largest brewery in the country at one time to today, where it's this mix of all these different East Coast influences, Midwest influences, Rust Belt, working class influences. And today the beer scene is so rich and there's so much you can get out of a visit to Cincinnati. Speaking personally, as somebody who drove there earlier this month and was there for about 24 hours, I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. Every single thing I did while I was there, I really enjoyed. It's a city that I immediately felt comfortable in and felt at home in the very first time I went there. And the Brewing Heritage Trail, we didn't even talk about the fact that you took me and Kenny into the tunnels and we had a great time. We should, I was thinking this earlier, with 3 beer guides, 3 history guides here, 3 tour guides here. I think we should do a round table of what is the weirdest thing, not a round table, but as 2 tour guides here, Braxton and I should ask you, Steve, what is the weirdest question you get often on your tours? I think for us, the funniest one is like people ask, like, when do you add the alcohol to beer? And it's like we've been talking about this whole process of creating sugar and the yeast feeding on it, and turning into carbon dioxide and flavor compounds and alcohol, and then someone's summation of that is like, well, then when do they add the liquor to make me drunk? But for you, with the history side of it, what are the weird questions that you get often when you're on your tours?
I think the one, various versions of it that we get the most is going into these old cellars, and they're dank and moldy and dripping and whatnot, and it's all around, how many people died here? Where are the dead bodies down here? Have you seen ghosts down here? Like that's where we get it. So I'd say that's the most common in that variety there.
Well, I'm glad that I can play into that, because I believe when we were in the tunnels, I said, hey guys, do you know what the number one cause of death for brewers was back in the day? Suffocation. Let's get out of this tunnel quickly. Yeah. Steve, thank you so much for joining the show and
my pleasure.
telling us about Cincinnati history and what the Brewing Heritage Trail does. Please plug for the Brewing Heritage Trail. Where can people find your organization? Where can they learn more about what you do?
It's easy. It's brewingheritagetrail.org. That's all of our tours. We give guided tours all year long. We have a variety of different tours. Kind of our standard tour is about an hour and a half to 2 hours. You visit at least one cellar and historic brewery building. Almost all of our tours include beer, but we have everything from a brunch tour. We do a distillery and brewery tasting tour. We just launched the beer and baseball tour in Cincinnati, where if you love baseball, we take you to every single site that the Cincinnati Reds have played professional baseball in Cincinnati, and telling you the stories along that and how beer was a big piece of that. So again, there's a kind of a tour for everybody. I also can't help but not plug Bock Fest. Bock Fest is, this will be, I think, the 32nd year. It's the largest Bock beer festival in America, actually probably the world. We'll just say the world. It's been going on for 31 years. It's a 3-day celebration of Bock beer, the coming of spring and over the Rhine's brewing heritage. Kicks off with a parade on Friday night at happy hour. We parade up the street led by a giant wooden goat, a real goat pulling a keg of beer, monks, and just, kind of goes from there. But there's a whole weekend of course, Bock beer, but all kinds of great activities. So that's bockfest.com. So come visit us in March. Weather's not always as great, but the joy of doing an outdoor festival in March in Cincinnati. Drink some Bock beer and you'll be fine. So
I've made a number of promises on this show, and I don't know if I've kept any of them, but I think I'm going to try to go to Bock Fest next year. That sounds amazing.
Again, it's a uniquely Cincinnati thing, and I joke we're really the caretakers of it. It's kind of got like elements in New Orleans and Mardi Gras, like kind of the cruise. Like it's not that organized, but like we set the table for the parade, and then you never know who's showing up. Like we nominally have people register to keep some semblance of order, and it's just ridiculous. And there's a sausage queen competition. There's a gender neutral competition that we elect a sausage queen to lead the parade the following year. There's a snowman that gets set on fire, all kinds of stuff. So
what
we had a blizzard in 2009 that shut us down on Friday night. So the following year, this is one of my proudest accomplishments. I came up with an idea. We have the precipitation retaliation happy hour. We burn a snowman in effigy because obviously you can't really burn snow. But we burn a snowman in effigy the week before Bock Fest, and generally it's worked for us. So we've had tornadoes miss us. This year we got a little too windy one night, but we managed to survive. So it's a blast. But Bock Fest, brewingheritagetrail.org. Do it all. So
all right.
Oh my God. So as soon as we get off of here, I'm going to bockfest.org, and is it bockfest.org.com?
We're .com, I think. Just Cincinnati Bock Fest, you'll find us. So
just Google Cincinnati Bock Fest. I'm going to go to that. I'm going to plan my trip for next year. I mean, you had me at the parade is led by a giant goat, and you booked my hotel room by telling me that you're burning a snowman in effigy. I mean, my cousin's getting married next year. I have plans for next year, but I am no more excited about anything than I am about potential of me going to Bock Fest next year. Why didn't I know this existed? Okay.
The best kept secret.
It literally, yeah. When were we there to shoot? Man, we must have just missed Bock Fest last year.
We were trying to get you there, Bock Fest, and I think just scheduling didn't work. So
yeah,
the first conversation with Kenny was going to try to get you here for Bock Fest. So yeah.
Oh, wait. Can he mess that up so I can blame him? Kenny Gold, I'm coming for you. All right.
Oh, man.
Steve, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks also to Rhinegeist for supplying beer for this episode. If you want to follow more about them, you can find them simply at Rhinegeist on Instagram. That's RHINEGEIST on Instagram. Shout out to Rhinegeist for not only supplying the beer for the episode, but for our beer club as well. All of our subscribers have been drinking these awesome beers with us tonight, and you can do the same. Just head over to shop.citybrewtours.com and you can explore subscription options to join our beer club and get wonderful beers like these shipped to you on a monthly basis. You also get the opportunity to join the live stream and hang out with us as we record each one of these episodes. And you also get special perks that can only come with being a part of the nation's oldest dedicated brewery tour company. Shop.citybrewtours.com. Check it out. Now, I don't know where that was. Somebody just laughed at the background of one of your mics, and it caught me. Anyways, back to the professionalism. Next week, we will be featuring our final two breweries of Cincinnati. We'll be talking about Mad Tree, which we mentioned tonight. Beautiful facility, big brewery that brews excellent beers. And also, we'll be featuring the wonderful folks from Urban Artifact, and we'll be talking to the chief of sales over there, the head sales guy over there, and talking about everything that they do with their fresh pressed fruit. What do they call what's the special word that they use to refer to them, Steve? Fruit tarts.
Fruit tarts, yeah.
Fruit tarts. They're fruit tarts that they make with fresh pressed fruit, not purees. Fresh processed fruit. And we'll be talking about everything Urban Artifact next week to close out our Cincinnati episodes. But for tonight, that's going to do it. So until next week, stay safe, be kind, and support local breweries. Cheers, everybody.